Yeah, so I still have the white table that was in my basement that I started the business in. Okay. And we subletted maybe 1,000 square feet. I was in Greenbelt for the time. And you fast forward, and we have nearly 85 employees now.
Hey everyone, and welcome to today's episode of The Diligent Leader. I'm one of your hosts, Kalie Jakovics, and with me I have Holly Basta. And today we have a special guest, Cedric Johnson, who is the president of ADCI. And Cedric, we're super excited to have you on today. And, tell us a little bit about, who you are, what you like to do for fun. Tell us a little personal side of you.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. Again, I'm Cedric Johnson and serve as president of ADCI. I was technically born in Washington, D.C., but only lived there for 3 days and moved in Maryland, and then essentially grew up in Maryland. Went to high school in Greenbelt at a science and technology school, went to college at University of Delaware. And then I got really fortunate and did an internship in airports. Right now, it's interesting with the college things. I have two daughters who are 21 and 19, and in college, I just moved one in yesterday. So,
congrats!
Really,
you're like
really
empty
excited.
Nester now, kind of.
Exactly. So I've been fortunate that I've been able to, I started ADCI. I've been able to be involved in the company for the last 18 years.
Yeah, you had an internship in airports. Like, how did that happen? Like, how did you get in the industry, really?
So believe it or not, I went to a career day and I was technically trying to interview for a state highway position, but then along with the project manager from state highway was an airports project manager. And they said, we think you would be a perfect fit for an internship. I was a junior in college that they were located in Timonium, Maryland, but I was in Newark, Delaware, but our winter session was about 5 weeks. So I spent essentially 5 weeks working in the airports group. And that was kind of my first exposure to airports design outside of a little bit of class time we had at school.
Very cool. I mean, that's such a cool field to get into.
Yeah. And I remember sitting at dinner with my parents, and they were like, how much work can there really be at an airport?
Oh,
and you learn about this internship with airports, and turns out now that the true numbers are about a sixth of the economy runs through an airport, as all of you know, when you fly all the time.
Yeah,
but at the time, it was thought to be a little bit of a too niche of a market to get into because it was very specific.
Right. Oh, that's very cool. That it's like really like laser focused. A lot of people don't think the work behind planning, consulting, engineering, all of that goes into the airport. And then on top of that, having the airport run consistently, efficiently from day to day as well.
Well, I feel like you might have just answered my next question, but I'm going to go ahead and ask Cedric again. No,
Sure.
That was fabulous. So give us a little bit of background on what Airport Design Consultants does. And I know Kalie just sort of mentioned a few of the day-to-day operations, but give us pull back the curtain, give us a little overview of what your day is like.
Sure. So that name, you just said it very well. Kudos to you, Airport Design Consultants Incorporated. The acronym is ADCI. We were specifically set up to serve the aviation community and to, as Kalie indicated, in consulting. Now, it is diversified consulting. So when I say that, what does that mean? Planning, so looking at the projections for the airport for the next 20 years and what improvements are needed to meet the demand. Design, which is just pure, engineering design of major projects there. Program management, which is essentially extension of staff. So as you know, a lot of airports have sizable programs, but they don't necessarily have the internal infrastructure to lead those programs. So we provide program management, staff extension. And then finally, when you put the shovel in the ground and it goes to construction, we have construction management and inspection staff as well that serve at different airports across the country. So all within the aviation and airport world, but diversified in the services that we provide.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a tall order to fill there. And I mean, especially in this particular area where we have 3 major airports in the area, do you feel like there's a never-ending opportunity for work here? Because I feel like there's always something going on at one of those places. There's always a new upgrade or a construction project happening.
Yeah, well, what's interesting enough, because we started our office right there in Maryland because it was strategically located in close proximity to BWI, National, and Dulles. And you have these primary transportation centers, which served us well because I started my career technically working at BWI in 1994. But to your question, yeah, the opportunities when you have multi-billion-dollar programs. I mean, BWI had its highest traffic month since its inception last month. And then obviously National and Dulles continue to grow and the region continues to grow. The transportation hub of the three airports is extremely important. I would add, and sometimes it's missed, that there's a lot of reliever airports around the area in Maryland, D.C. So we work at Hagerstown, Martin State, other airports, and then obviously other states geographically. Airport design consultants still provide services there too.
Okay, so it could be like one of those smaller airports to BWI as well as on the national level.
That's right. That's right. The recognizable airports have the large commercial traffic, but there's a lot of reliever and regional airports that still have runways and taxiways and terminals and services that are needed that we work at too. We actually balance between both in the end.
Of course, yeah. I mean, it's a lot. We brought you on today because you're definitely a leader. You're an inspiration in aviation and everything that you do at ADCI. I wanted to just kind of, Holly kind of asked you to walk us through the day of kind of what it looks like as the president of this company.
Well, the interesting part, and to expand on the Maryland piece, is that we technically have 9 other offices.
Oh, wow.
And we work at about 60 different airports in about 26 states. So if you ask me, what my week is like, some say I don't actually live anywhere. I'm in Dallas right now. Okay. We do
I know you're
DFW.
always traveling.
That's right. I'm always traveling. It's really kind of my responsibility to be, quote unquote, the general manager of the firm and to make sure that our quality and culture and frankly, that our business development is still very robust. So now that we've opened these offices, Pennsylvania, New York, West Virginia, Dallas, my week tends to be a day internally at the headquarters office, and then the rest of the week at other offices or other airports or other locations where we're working.
Okay. And you've started this company, is that correct?
Yep. Started in 2006. There was a original group. I had a business partner. Now technically had 2 when we started. All right. But it was a 2-year business plan. And then obviously that fun part that every business owner goes to and trying to present to the bank and get somewhat of line of credit to get started. Kalie, and I'd like to say in 2006, we certainly knew that there was going to be a subprime mortgage crisis.
Oh, yeah.
but we didn't. But we
that.
actually doubled in size during that time.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah. I mean, we've always focused on our quality and culture and responsiveness. And so I like to call it, we have the soul of a small business, which is, hey, you pick up the phone, you call, we're going to answer and we're going to respond. And you will always recognize the level of commitment that we put forward at ADCI. And so to answer your question, also is like part of my job is to make sure that the individuals and professionals that we bring in can maintain that culture.
Right. It seems like, I mean, you said 2002 is when the company started. And
2006.
Oh, 2006. Sorry. 2006,
yes. Okay.
Company started. And it seems like you've done a lot and become like super successful. I mean, I know it's been years, but it seems like within those first couple of years, like walk us through that journey. It seems like you guys have been successful for a very long time and kind of how you have evolved as a company as well.
Yeah. So I still have the white table that was in my basement that I started the business plan in. Okay. And we subletted maybe 1,000 square feet. That was in Greenbelt for the time. And you fast forward and we have nearly 85 employees now, 9 offices. It was certainly, to your point, it was a journey getting there. A lot of it in the beginning was having this kind of blind belief in yourself. And I always like to say actually my father said it, there's confidence, cockiness, and arrogance, and in between it's humility. So I was always trying to maintain a level of confidence, but also have the humility to know that we would have challenges trying to grow the business. Full disclosure to you two, ultimately the original business plan, we wanted to have about 20 employees in the end.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Nice. And now here we sit with 85 and a trajectory that's continuing to grow. So at some point there, you think you're leading the business is actually leading you.
It's ever evolving, right?
You're evolving. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, go ahead, Holly.
Oh, no worries. So I was just going to ask Cedric, in such a fast-paced industry such as this, with many different moving parts, and as you said, you have to be ready to respond when you get that call at a moment's notice sometimes. What would you say are the most important leadership skills that you draw on to do the work that you do?
Communication, communication, communication. We're in a technical field, obviously, but many of our clients, I call them the stakeholders. Many of the stakeholders can be your client, and stakeholders will be the people who work with you. Communication is that key connector that brings everyone together and gets them on the same page. Communicating that whether there's an immediate priority, what the timetable is, what the budget is, and then to your point, me finding and communicating with my senior leadership team. Because there's a lot of individuals in senior leadership that we now, based on the volume of the company, we have to lean on to be leaders, okay? And they are. And they're leaders. And then that communication continues as a two-way street to work its way down and then back up and then back to our clients. And I like to always say that a great strength, I used to think it was a weakness when I was in school that I could articulate technical solutions, okay? And I was always like, something wrong with me. But now that's become a great strength with the clients and the owners that we work for all across the country. And what's interesting about aviation too, is that because it's such a national transportation mechanism, the owner's expectations, their ways to communicate are all different depending on the region that you're in, depending on the size of the airport. There's a lot of difference between Florida and LA. There's a lot of difference between Texas and Maryland. Okay,
yeah.
They're all airports.
And to your point as well, that's why it's so important to not only be able to communicate your point effectively, but you have to be able to listen as well and take all of that sort of into consideration.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that has been an important promoter for us as a company, is that we have in our senior leadership team a lot of strong communicators.
Mm-hmm. Probably that good process in place as well. Are there any certain tools or anything that your team uses for communications, either internally or also for the client?
Yeah, I mean, we're on one of them now. The virtual world and the pandemic with Zoom and we use Teams quite a bit, has certainly facilitated a lot of it. I think I remember, I'm old enough to remember, email just starting out, coming out, and email and texting now. I think my IT guy makes fun of me on how many texts I get every day, because that's a mechanism for communication. It's a multitasker.
Right.
And certainly Bluebeam, we also use other technology tools, Bluebeam for the design component. And we have other software with BIM, et cetera, that we use to help facilitate the design as well. But yeah, a lot of, as we see a majority of our population, the phone.
Right. I have 50 unread text messages right now. It's fine. I get to it, but.
Right. Yeah. I do have a question too, just given some of the, we'll call them challenges, some IT challenges to transportation over the last few months. Talk about how you've worked through that sort of crisis type of situation, and some pointers, tips that you can give to others who might find themselves in a similar situation where, you have to get information out to the public. You have to work with the stakeholders, and of course, working with the airports themselves to sort of mitigate that type of a situation.
You mean with the software?
Yes.
Challenges? Yeah, certainly in the last 2 years, there's been an acceleration of security around your
Right.
software systems. Not to make fun of myself, but me talking on a phone, walking through an airport, and then having to go through Duo and then an authenticator at the same time is now a product of what we're in. We got to protect, some of the biggest risks we have now are cyber related. I mean, we didn't have to have cyber insurance 10 years ago. Now we have significant amount of insurance. So how do we mitigate that? I mean, really, it's about internally for us standardizing our systems. So we have a great team, IT team, that I probably complain the most about the level of security, but they're very, very protective of our systems. And there's numerous steps to it. And then we also have numerous firewalls to protect against that for us.
Those are some good steps to take, right? The question that I wanted to ask was, I guess, how do you stay at the forefront of those technologies, or even innovation in engineering as well?
So we have a pretty robust brown bag program, okay? And when I say brown bag, that's that hour during lunch, okay? And we break it up in this thirds. 1/3 of it is internally with our teams, just talking to each other and having sessions. Another is external vendors coming in and being able to talk. And others are external peers. So we even have peers that come in and talk about what they're doing. What are other businesses doing just in general? So within our brown bag program, and frankly, our attendance at conferences as well, we get a lot of exposure to the latest innovative approaches, what others are doing, and then communicating internally with us at the same time. And that's why we have that internal part.
I like the brown bag method there.
Everybody likes a free lunch, but if they can learn at a free lunch too, then it works pretty well.
Exactly. And I was curious too, I guess, how many new projects does your team get a year? And then also, are you working, of course you have 85 team members, but do you work a lot with other vendors? I'm sure because it's such a huge process and project, right? There's probably like many different people that you guys are working with.
Yeah, we do. I should have communicated that part. We are, basically we're civil engineers, also with electrical engineering capability and some structural capability, but we work with a lot of different consultants because of the architectural needs and mechanical, electrical and plumbing needs, geotechnical survey. So most times our teams are pretty robust. They could be anywhere from 3 or 4 firms to 19 firms on one contract.
Wow.
And to kind of answer your question about the number of tasks, that's a great question. And we always kind of quantify. We've successfully completed probably now going on 3,000 separate tasks since our inception. When I say that, a task could be a $30,000, emergency patch job, or a task could be a $80 million runway program or a $250 million runway program. So they vary in nature. The metric sometimes that I use is that I've been the engineer of record for over $2.5 billion worth of construction since the beginning of my career, and ADCI is probably 80% of that.
Wow. Now I know why you're so busy.
Yeah. So to answer your question, we win new contracts, and those contracts, some of them are called comprehensive on-call contracts, meaning we're your doctor for the next 5 years, and whatever problem comes up, we got to go solve it. And then others are individual project selections of large projects that come. So in the end, I'd probably say we're somewhere in between 250 and 300 new tasks a year.
Wow, that's a lot.
Wow. And as you sort of take on those new tasks, I'm wondering, as a leader, how do you cultivate a strong culture that supports both creativity and collaboration within your organization?
Yeah, I have my acronym internally that everyone in the company better be able to say is IOU. So it's initiative, ownership, and understanding. Okay, so we have the IOU approach, have the initiative to always try to push yourself. And, one of my characteristics is I'm a competitive person, but I'm also, I show a lot of initiative. Take ownership of what you're doing, because our culture depends on it and our quality depends on it. And understanding is, if you don't understand what's being asked of you, then ask the question, have the initiative to ask the question and find out. So the key thing is sometimes, and you two both know this, sometimes the quality can get lost in translation and the listener understanding what you're asking for and the person requesting it, saying it in a way and articulating the way that they can understand. And we even take it to a next level. I use a program as Blue Water, which is just ask everyone's questions. It's that DISC, dominance, influencer, supporter, or compliance, and what makes your personality, and put the senior leadership people through some of that so they can understand what makes them tick, and then I can understand what makes them tick and even what makes me tick, and then hopefully improve on our communication. But yeah, to answer your question, IOU is that is the brand name within our organization, Initiative, Ownership, and Understanding.
I love that. IOU. Everyone remember that.
We all owe each other. Yeah. It's up on the wall.
Right. What about, so, I mean, you've brought the company and built the company up. It's been, I mean, it seems like you guys are doing really well, right? You have tons of new projects, tons of employees and vendors in multiple locations. What are your future plans or goals for ADCI over the next, whether it's the next couple of years to the, 10 years from now?
That's a great question. Well, certainly when you started in your basement, you had somewhat of a dream that you would have a successful company.
You're giving Steve Jobs vibes, like in his garage.
Right, exactly. And now that it's expanded to a much larger scale than you ever thought. That's a great question, is what's your next steps? Well, certainly we have to continue to grow in order to provide fair and equitable opportunities to all of the people within the organization to also grow their career. So I tend to think of it as it's a reverse pyramid, that I'm on the bottom and supporting how the company wants to grow through the senior leadership and the people in the organization. As we've expanded geographically, it's offered new opportunities for some of our younger engineers and some senior engineers to take the client by the rein. It's evolved, Kalie, to the point that in 2006, it was, 1, 2, or 3 of us involved in everyday operation of every task. And now that's physically impossible. So now it's me being responsible for the quality and the culture, and to be that quote unquote neck you can choke if things don't go right, because I'm going to go in and fix it.
Yes.
And so to answer your question about where we're going, providing opportunities internally for the organization, for them to become leaders in the organization, and ultimately have ADCI continue its culture of quality, and then hopefully a legacy of sustained service for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and I love everything that you're saying, and that you're kind of on the bottom and you're helping support and continue to grow. I think those are some great qualities. Of course, that you are a great leader, and the company that you've built. I was going to say how we met a few years ago was actually through the BWI Business Partnership.
Yep.
You were on like the mentorship panel, and I was the moderator. So that's how we met. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I kind of want him to be my mentor. He's really cool. And he knows so much, and he built this company, and it's super inspiring. So thank you for that. And
thank you.
Leading that into my next question is, mentorship as well. So, I mean, I would assume that you have a mentor, because I think you are the type of person that wants to continue to grow, be hardworking, successful, and that you always need to learn to, continue to grow. Tell me, if you have a mentor, do you mentor people? What does that look like? And also within the company, do you offer mentorship programs?
That's right. It's a little bit of both. Yes, I had several mentors in different facets growing up. I still meet with some of them, and some of them are business owners. Some of them are, frankly, it's a relative.
Yeah. I think you need to have a healthy mix.
My father was always my original mentor, but I still meet with them. And I usually I'm now the moderator for that, even though they're my mentors and they're of different age, and I bring the subject and then we all talk about it. So that's kind of how I kind of handle now I have to buy dinner, but
that makes sense.
But then there's a macro level, there's a company mentorship. So we were the first at BWI to serve in a mentor protege program for minority firms that executive director, Ricky Smith, started. And we were the first mentor, and we mentored a firm at that time. And they are our protege for a year, and they were successful at securing work at the airport. So that was kind of a macro firm to firm mentorship. Now I work my way to both internally with ADCI and externally. Yes, I still go to speak at a lot of youth series, both at my college. I serve on the board to college, and I go speak there. And then I have individual mentors, proteges that I have a scholarship at Delaware for engineering, and I get them, and then it happens externally with the college. Internally, we have the ADCI allies, where we try to matchmake senior leadership with younger engineers coming into the organization. And sometimes they don't have to be in direct line with each other. Sometimes it's better that they're over here working at Charleston and the other one's over doing something else at National, just to have an ear to bounce off of and someone that's kind of a mentor to them. So we kind of implement that inside the organization too.
I love that you're doing that, because so I'm still a young professional, guys, like just, a couple more years, right? And for me, like, I'm going to events, and sometimes it's young professional focused events, but I really want to encourage that whether the young professionals are putting on events or even mentorship and things along those lines, like I need those seasoned professionals. I say seasoned professionals, because that's who I'm going to learn from. I'm going to learn from my peers as well, right? But I need to have someone who has that experience for a number of years, so I can learn, so I can pick up on, what they're doing, what are their qualities and things along those lines. So I love that you're doing that, and you're matching them up with not necessarily someone that's doing the exact same thing, because they can still learn, right?
Yeah.
So
and there's different facets to it. There's the last 5 years, as you can imagine, there's been a lot of inquiries about how'd you grow your company? How'd you started? How did this happen? I'm just entrepreneur, not necessarily engineering, just people who, they want to test the waters and see if they can go into the entrepreneurship world. So there's that piece of it. But then inside of engineering, it's like, how'd you get your career going? Well, I did an internship. So maybe I do an internship. And then how do I grow from there? And then how do I take the next step? So I get inquiries from that too. And one thing I'm very, very, I try to be very open about. I'm happy to share advice anytime, and happy to offer, my story anytime.
That was going to be my next question.
That's where I am.
For the audience, do you have any advice for any aspiring leaders, whether they're starting a new business, if they're wanting to get involved with engineering or aviation?
The first thing I always say, and I say this as best that I can for our next generation, don't bypass the process. Don't try to bypass the process. There's a process to gaining the experience that's going to be a tool for you later to lead others. But it's difficult to lead if you just jumped right over the process and then go through the steps necessary to truly become a good leader. Okay. And the reason I say that, I mentioned that internship that I started with in airports when I didn't know I was ever going to be involved in airports. In my first week was sitting in front of the one copier for 200 people and making copies 10 hours a day.
Yep.
And I remember going home and eating dinner with my parents and say, how'd it go today? And I had a suit and tie on, and I was like, oh, it went pretty well. Did you learn anything? Yeah, I'm learning a little bit. And the next day I made copies for 8 hours. And next day I made copies for 8 hours. And finally on Wednesday, how'd it go today? I've been making copies all day. And they're like, what?
Hey, sometimes you got to do that to have those necessary steps with what you're saying.
Yes. And my dad had a great statement to me. He was like, well, you be the best copy maker they've ever seen, and then you use it to make yourself better. So since there was only one copier, I introduced myself to every person that came up to the copy machine. And by the end, guess what? 70% of the company knew who I was by the end of that week, because I was in front of the copy machine. Yep. But as starting your career that way and not bypassing the process leads you to understand and have the humility to understand all facets that go into a company being successful, which is putting you in a position to lead. So don't try to jump it. It's part of the process. And as you grow and learn, within 2 years, I was running $30 million projects, but started on the copy.
Okay, I'm getting inspired.
So
That's the way it works.
that is such a true statement. And Cedric, thank you so much for sharing that, because one of my very first jobs out of college, I also had to make a lot of copies. But my job entailed me taking those copies then around to different areas of the company. And so it helped me to learn the ropes. It helped me to learn who's who. It helped me to learn people's names,
Yes.
the operations, the day-to-day in and out of the network
Yes.
and sort of everything. And again, help people to get to know me too. So I really love that you shared that, because that's now going to put my copier experience into a whole new perspective for me as I look back on it.
Embrace it in that it's all a part of the process to where you want to go. And you can gain strength from any of it. And I always say two things. Adversity is not to be feared. It makes you stronger, and have the courage to try. If you try really hard, that's my leadership style. Frankly, I try really hard. And if everyone sees you trying really hard, and guess what? They're like, well, he's trying hard and not, so I better try hard. I better do it too.
Yeah.
Well, and I
So-
think as a leader too, it's really important for those that you're leading to see you getting your hands dirty and really getting in there and digging into the trenches alongside of them, because then they're going to be more likely to be inspired by that. They're going to be more likely to see you digging in, taking that initiative, and putting the effort in. And then I feel like that's sort of what inspires people to want to do the work too themselves.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And I always want to be able to communicate to the team that I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I didn't have to do. That's okay. So
you've already
process.
They know that you've gone through it all, through that process, through the experience. So I think that's another, another great quality.
Yes.
As a leader. So I guess we have just a couple minutes left. So I have a couple more questions.
Sure.
I guess, what legacy do you hope to leave as a leader? And also, for ADCI, what is your legacy there?
So the number one metric we have in the company that I set was 100% reselection rate. And what I mean by that, Kalie, if you hire me, give me an opportunity one time, I'm going to do the job to such a level of quality, you're going to get me to do it again and again and again. All right. We are not 100% successful in winning somewhere the first time, but we are 100% successful in once they offer an opportunity for us to work for them, we work for them again and again and again and again. So my legacy is to never get fired and be reselected wherever we had an opportunity to work.
Right.
Okay. And that means that we've maintained the original culture that was set by the original 5 of us, which is the highest level of quality and the soul of a small business.
I love that.
You understand our commitment.
Mm-hmm. Is that kind of what you would say sets ADCI apart from, other competitors that you may have?
Absolutely. There's lots of people that, obviously can do great work and do well. But I like to say we have a legacy level of commitment that we will do what most say they're not going to do because it's personal to us. It's personal to me.
Yeah.
In the end, it's while I only have one of my initials in the name, and see, it's still my name on the board, so I take it personal.
Yeah, so you're offering them that like personalized approach. You're there for them when they need it. It's kind of how I feel with my clients as well. Like I'm super passionate about it, and I want them to be successful. And it seems like ADCI is, with you as well. Yeah. We want them to be successful, right?
Yeah. And leadership requires evolution too. Like I had to evolve. I wanted to be involved in everything we did. And physically that's, not necessarily possible anymore, but I can have my hands in the culture and the quality and the people. And so I think of myself as now, a general manager who's my job is to identify and find the right people who can sustain our culture and keep us winning.
Of course. Well, I want to thank you for joining us today. Is there anything else that you want to leave the audience with, whether it's advice or anything about ADCI, any upcoming events, anything you want them to know?
Hey, look, I appreciate you having me on. To the audience, I say, continue to believe in yourself. Positivity matters. Trying hard matters. Being motivated and being self-motivated matters. And I believe I'm that hopeless romantic that believes that anyone can achieve any goal they set for themselves with the highest level of effort that they can put forward.
Yes. Mindset is everything. That's how I live my life.
Mindset's everything.
So. Well, thank you. It's been inspiring, and I'm like want to go work now. It's like motivating to hear you.
You got me inspired. Those are great questions from both of you. I thank both of you for your time and questions.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Everyone, thanks for tuning in to this episode of The Diligent Leader. I want to thank our guest, Cedric, for being with us today. Don't forget to like, follow, and share this episode. We've got plenty of other episodes coming up in the future. We're so excited to be able to share those with you. Once again, I want to thank my host, Kalie Jakovics, for coming on today and for sharing her business and leadership knowledge with us, along with Cedric. So thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Diligent Leader.